Welcome back. Uh, so this was the last slide where we were discussing about the damage which was caused by 2001 earthquake to this temple. Of course, what you see here is this was not restored, but still we were able to see a couple of signatures which were very indicative of that has been resulted because of 2001 Bhuj earthquake. And also, not all locations were been got affected. Slightly they got affected, but not severely. But the evidence which we found was related to some different earthquake which occurred in the past and was probably responsible for this damage. So again, very similar structural pattern. You can see what we were looking in Europe and all that. And as I told in the one of the lecture in the previous lecture that this block movement uh, back and forth and displacement of the blocks were very commonly seen in such structures. Okay, as well as the rotation of the blocks and all that. Okay. So if you see here, this is the random orientation of the blocks in close to the roof, and then there is a lateral movement of the columns here, as well as the rotation of the blocks here, and similarly over here also you can see the rotation of the blocks. Okay, and clear indication of that. Okay, so this is related to all strong ground shaking. Even we were able to see that whatever the damage probably occurred in the past to this structure was been restored. Okay, so this you can see that this is the restored area of because of the damage which was caused by the earthquake. Even the dislocated blocks here, okay, these were very clearly indicated, and the widening of the space between the two blocks were also very commonly seen. So this glitches they provided that it can remain together and uh, should not get displaced during the earthquake. Okay, or and then also as we were looking at the evidence of the diagonal cracks which could develop because of strong ground shaking, and we saw this signatures in from some examples from Europe as well as from Kashmir temples. So this was also very well identified. Okay, and then there is another area, not very close to this temple, but along the mainland region only, and that is the known as your Padhagar Manjil temple, and it was like the story which we heard was that this was been attacked by the previous rulers, and that was the reason for the damage and all that. But what we saw was not the case. Okay, so this temple is typically have the columns on which it is standing, and different floors are there. At least two floors we can see, the ground floor and the top floor here, and we found that there is a clear indication of the rotation of these columns. Okay, so here also you can see that there the rotation here as well as over here, as we have been looking at and seen some signatures from Japan, from Europe, that such rotations are very common during an earthquake. Okay, so here also you can see this part here, which clearly shows the rotated columns. Okay, and then what we found was the fallen columns, and this the all these columns were fallen, or they were lying in same direction. Okay, so this was the direction of the columns which fell down. Okay, so initially of course they might be like this. Okay, and then they have fallen in the same direction. So this is related to typical seismic ground shaking. Okay, so these are some evidence which we picked up, and we published this paper also, talking about that how one can look at the seismological signatures in the archaeological sites. Okay, and as I told that this area was very much flourishing and one of the testimony to that was the Dholavira, which is well, like we can say that in terms of the architect, in terms of the structures which they have done, okay, well planned city, okay, Dholavira, and this was related to the Indus Valley civilization which flourished in that area. So there are evidence of tectonic signatures also, which clearly suggest that the landscape has been influenced by the past earthquake, and this landscape got changed over the time because of multiple earthquakes occurred in this region. But coming to the so this is an evidence of the river which used to flow. Actually, this there's an the branch. If you can see carefully over here, there's a branch here. Let me take the blue. Uh, so if you see this, this is a channel here which flows through this area, and then there is like it is not flowing across this. Okay, you don't see any sort of an signature of channel, but earlier this was connected with this Kori Creek. Okay. But now what we see is there is a pond here which has been developed. So whatever the water is coming, getting filled up here, and this is the ponding condition at present. So somewhere along this fault line, that is what we call Alaband fault. This was responsible for disruption of this channel. Okay, if I take the cross section over here, then say this is A and this one is B here. Okay, then it looks something like this. Okay, so it goes up and then it gets so the ponding. So this is your A and this is your B side. Okay, so this portion was been uplifted and back tilted. So this was uplifted, uplift was there and then back tilt. Okay. So because of the change in the gradient, this area is now having the pond. Okay. So water is getting logged here. It is not flowing across this pond. Okay. So fault in the sense would be somewhere here, and then surface trace may go like this. Okay. And that is what you have here, the surface trace. Okay. So if you see close up of this, you can even on the Google Earth, you can find that there is no stream which is flowing right now through this, okay, because of the uplift. So earthquakes can change the landscape, can modify the landscape, and eventually it affects the human settlements. Okay. So this is another signature, or we can say the evidence that we found in Kutch, which where the climate was not did not influence much to this landscape, but the earthquakes were responsible for that. So there are paleo channels which we have identified. Paleo means ancient channels through which the river flowed in the past. So present day, if you see, this is what is the configuration or the landscape of that area. So you have a huge pond in that region, which gets because of the natural, we can say the barrier. Okay, and this probably was this landscape was modified and giving rise to the present configuration was because of 1819 earthquake. That what the previous studies suggest. Okay, but what we have been able to identify that there were multiple earthquakes in this region. So this was not only the earthquake which blocked and disrupted this channel. Okay, so even the earthquake was been named as this was in 1819, and this was been named as Allahabad earthquake. So this is Bandh means you are having the dam. Okay, so Allah Ka Bandh, that was the name which came up in this region. Okay, so if we look at the signatures of paleo channels in Rajasthan and then connect and in Gujarat region and then connect them to the major river systems or drainage system in Himalayas, okay, or which are flowing in from Himalayas, then there are studies which talks about that this area was quite green and having major rivers flowing across Rajasthan and Gujarat, and finally debouching into the uh, shallow arm of the sea, and that was Arabian Sea. So we had like the major river which used to flow was also Saraswati in this region, and then Indus or Shatadru they call, and then the Shadvati was one of another river which was the major river which used to flow and debouch into the then existing shallow arm of Arabian Sea. So we identified some landscape from this region, like landforms from this region, which suggested that this area was having and like what we call the fan area, okay, or the delta we were having, and this is what we call the Saraswati delta. Then we call this Nara and Shatadru delta and the Shatavati delta. So the channels, distributory channels, were responsible, or we could say that the distributory channels provided ideal situation for the sites to flourish in this region. And what I was showing the disrupted channel was this one, which is we call the Naras or Shatadru delta channel, and till end there was a site which is still very much visible on ground. The ruins are visible on ground along with the Karim Shahi area. So there are some archaeological sites which are also uh, seen on the bank of this river, ancient river which was there, which got disrupted probably due to the Alaband earthquake. Okay, so what was the reason? So questions are straight that if this was the condition which we see now, then what was the reason and how these people were surviving in that area? Okay, because there was no way of connectivity, no way of transportation, and they were navigators. Okay, so they used to navigate through these shallow channels and all that. Okay, so this is the story which talks about that probably the events in the past were responsible in shaping of this region, and probably there was like the activity was more in terms of the number of earthquakes during 3.5 to 3 Ka, and then finally what we see is this configuration of that region, that is Great Run of Kutch. Okay, so there are in historical data, and we can say the recent data published by Britishers and all that. They say that there was a fort which used to connect this area. Like for if you go back here, so there was a fort here. Okay. This is Sindri Fort. Okay. Now this Sindri Fort was operational during or before 1819 earthquake. Okay, and that is the photograph which you see, or the sketch, okay, of that region. That is, this is before this area was Sindri Fort, which was navigable, and like it was operational, but later it resulted into the complete and probably this, so there was quite possible that this area got subsided. So whenever there is an earthquake, you will have subsidence here, and then you will have an uplift, okay, here. So this area subsided where you had an Sindri Fort, and this is an uplift here, which resulted into the ponding condition of your Nara channel. So Sindri was located over here, which subsided, okay, and that was what has been shown by one of the author in 1857. Okay. Now coming to the Dholavira site, so again we had in same concept, same understanding that whether Dholavira, which was one of the well planned city, I would say, or the town, which got ruined, whether it was because of the climate change or it was related to the tectonic movements and the earthquakes which were been triggered because of the tectonic movement. Now, this map is again, it talks about that uh, in 712 AD, this whole area was having what we call the shallow arm of Arabian Sea. Okay. So this whole area, all these islands, Bacham, Khadir, Bela, and then you have Chorar. These were all like in water. Okay, and you see a very clear evidence of sea notches here and all that. So this was there was a sea which engulfed this area. Okay. So this was in 1712. So this map is an old map which was been like published uh, later. Okay. Now, as I told that this site was quite flourishing, and most of the details are available in the literature. A lot of documentation has been done, and the slides are from I got from Dr. R.S. Best, who was instrumental in excavating the site. Okay. So this sub, if you hear that story from him, he says that this area is like it was quite flourishing, and till date, no one has been able to decode this area actually. So if you look at this one here, then you have this site, this script is they were not able to decode till date. Okay. So Dholavira, if you look at, then you have, as I told, it was one of the best well-planned city, and the Indus Valley civilization was quite widely spreaded in this region, other than the Mesopotamian and the culture in the Europe and all that. Okay, and this is what we have. The red dots all shows that uh, the most of the sites were along the river bank. Okay, and if you go to Google Earth and try to see this area, it will show a very meticulously designed uh, pattern of you can see the blocks here. So these are all the construction well planned city. Okay. So the excavation clearly showed that there were multiple cultural levels which were, so once it was been destroyed because of some reason, then another cultural level got get like he came in and occupied this region. So reoccupation is also been seen, and that can be seen over here. There's again photograph by R.S. Best during the time of excavation, which clearly suggests that this is an old structure, and these walls have been constructed later. Okay, and you can see it is like is a well planned streets. Okay, which were been excavated and show. So unless and until there was no conducive uh, climate, or we can say the environment, there were no reasons for these people to come and flourish in this area. Okay. So new streets, as I told that these the multiple cultural levels were there, and it was clearly indicated by the well planned, and you can see the drainage, which if you go now in that area, you will find open drainage, but they used to have all sealed drainage and well planned streets. Okay. So these are some signatures of that the artifacts which they came across in this area. And as I told that the site plan, if you see of Dholavira, it did not get transferred, and this site or the Harappan civilization dates back up to like 4,000 to 5,000 years before present. Okay, so it's quite old settlement in this region. Okay. So this is what they have, and even they have the how to store the water for if they, when because the climate was changing probably. So they understood that part, and they constructed huge tanks. Okay, for water reservoirs. So this is what you call the blue area, which has been shown here. is are all water reservoirs, and in incoming water and outgoing affluents. Okay, the people also took care of that part. Okay, so this is a conjectural view of that. So you have the water coming in here, getting stored in the tanks here, and then it has been poured out actually from here. So all waste goes through this one. So they had very well planned drainage in that area also. Okay. So the point here is that how this earthquakes or the tectonic movements and the tectonic movements resulting into the earthquakes, ground shaking, affected the human settlements. Okay, and they were been forced to move from one place to another place because of this landscape change. Okay, so to some extent, what understanding we have been able to develop till date is that the Kutch landscape got changed in last 5,000 or you can say 6,000 years. Okay, and climate did not play much of the role in shaping up of this area. So I just wanted to show what they have they found, and this is again a very uh, well documented site in terms of the seals and the pods they got. And of course, as I told, that the script which has been shown here is not been they were not able nobody has been able to decode it actually. Okay. So this were some signatures of the fallen walls because of strong ground shaking, then waved up walls, as you see you have seen in the previous lectures of mine of different examples. So these are the waved up walls uh, in the area, tilted walls again, and displaced one. You can see this one here. Okay, so these are tilted as well as displaced walls are there. And then, as I told that there were multiple cultural levels, or they came up and they are reoccupied, because this portion is again, you can say that this is not related to the older structure. This is comparatively younger structure you have, where the same material has been used and they have reoccupied this region. Okay, and then disalignment of the structures are also been seen here. Okay, so this wall has moved this side, and plus this was at the time of excavation, if you carefully see, but partially it was been restored, and what you see now is something like this. Okay, but this tilting of wall, this so wide, almost like a 1.5 meter wide wall is there, which got tilted, and that was because of the strong ground shaking of the past earthquakes which occurred in Kutch. Okay. So this was partially restored, but fortunately I got this photograph from Bis Saab, who took this photograph at the time of the excavation. Okay, so you can see there was some sort of an realignment of the material, or the walls and all that. So this is the comparable wall which was been restored, and this is over here, and also you can see the stone part over here. Okay, which is slightly moved after the during the restoration and all that. Okay, so this is the present day photograph. If you go to Dholavira, you will be able to come across this. Okay, this is in the north gate side. Okay, so like similar evidence, as I told, that we were able to pick up from many areas, and another site which is located in the Great Run of Kutch, little far from Dholavira, also gave or showed similar signature of waved up walls. Okay, this is from Junikaran, that is again in the Great Run of Kutch. Okay, so I'll stop here. We'll discuss more on this, and then come up with a new topic on seismic waves. Okay, probably in the next lecture. Till then, thank you so much. Namaskar.